encounter are a number of wooden sarcophagi. But as we go to explore these sarcophagi, we encounter one of the most enigmatic of all objects in the museum. Aside from this 10-foot long wooden sarcophagus, of which there are at least two, were there people actually that tall who fit in these sarcophagi? But what we encounter is the amazing so-called schist disc, and we'll go more into detail with that after we observe another one or two of the massive sarcophagi made out of wood from the dynastic period. Here are normal size ones, between 5 feet and 6 feet tall. And then this huge one, which is 10 to 12 feet tall. Is it simply a symbolic sarcophagus? So back to the so-called schist disc. It's called a schist disc because the archaeologists believe that it was made out of a stone called schist. But our geologist, Susan Moore, who is an expert, of course, on stone, believes that it's actually metamorphosed clay of some kind. That would mean that it would be very, very dense and also would be able to resonate. So this object, whatever it was, clearly rotated. But the strange thing is that the fins, 3 of them that you see there, don't angle. So it isn't apparent whether it was pulling or pushing air or water. Maybe it was simply made to set up some kind of vibration. So when we look at the profile here, unfortunately it was found broken and very badly repaired. But again, you can see it's a very complex piece of work.
That's funny. That's funny, gentlemen.
And it was found along
No, it is funny,
in
it
a
is funny.
cache with 30,000 to 40,000 turned very hard stone.
Sorry about that, man. Dude, my
plates
computer is just too
that could
hot,
only have
guys.
been made using
I don't know what I'm
lathes
gonna
of
do.
some kind.
I gotta create like a permanent
Even the
super
labels on
fan
these
system
objects
just
state
for the
that they're
PC. I have
likely
to.
from the pre-dynastic or archaic period.
It's already elevated on like this friggin' grid thing with this massive fan.
So here's an approach again to the so-called schist disc. They put it here so that the sun shines on it, I think on purpose.
Yeah, it's a
so that
laptop
it's
though, my
very
man.
difficult to properly photograph. The fact that it's even still on display is
It's a
quite
laptop,
amazing
my dude.
because it's very much an anomalous object, which does not fit into either the time frame or the technology of the dynastic Egyptians.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to order. I don't even know, man.
And here are some of the turned
I gotta use one of my
objects.
fans. I do have 2 fans on it.
These, again, are likely quite hard stone, and you can see they're perfectly bilaterally symmetrical, so they would have had to have been made on lathes. Since the archaeologists are stating that these are from the archaic period, that means that they were constructed prior to the invention of the potter's wheel. And a lathe is a far more complex machine than a potter's wheel. These could have been partially made on a lathe and then partially hand done because of the strange spouts that project off. But this fascinating object that has 5 lobes, again, appears to have been made at least partially on some kind of ancient lathe device. And these are very hard granite, syenite, and diorite bowls and other vessels that could only have been made, again, on a lathe of some kind. Now, the idea that that the lathes were operated by foot or hand are quite ridiculous, because in order to properly shape something like this, you have to have relatively high speed. So that means some kind of motor or engine would be involved. And those did not exist during the dynastic time period. And once again, many more of these objects. There are approximately 50 on display, but again, the cache that was found at Saqqara, the number of objects found was between 30,000 and 40,000. Many of them were found damaged or broken, and others unfinished. And here are some pottery vessels. These are from the dynastic time period. So it's very interesting that the ones that were turned on the lathe are even listed as being pre-dynastic, and yet these relatively crude pottery ones are from the later dynastic period. So what it's telling us, including this fascinating object here, is that the history of Egypt is far older and far more complex than most academics will state. And that's why these objects sitting in plain sight are fascinating and show us that it's very possible that there was a high-tech civilization existing 12,000 plus years ago in Egypt, and that these objects were inherited by the later dynastic people. What was this object? It looks like a flange of some kind. And note again that pieces are broken off. This damage appears to have happened in the very deep past because a high percentage of these objects are broken. And they were supposedly found in a massive pile all together in an underground space. These are boomerangs that are on display. Is it possible that the dynastic Egyptians invented the boomerang, or could these objects have in fact come from Australia, where the more famous history of boomerangs we know of? And then this very strange object. It's apparently made out of very hard granite once again, and the tool marks that we see where these circles are appear to be machine marks. What it's used, or what it was used during dynastic times for, I don't know. But again, it seems to be an object that was inherited by the dynastic Egyptians.
Such a
Notice the
scam.
strange burn
It's such a
marks on it.
scam.
The burn marks could very well have come from a cataclysm that occurred globally about 12,000 years
Thanks for
ago.
being here, everyone. I really appreciate it. That's nice of you.
It not only affected sites in Egypt, but we see ample evidence in Peru, Bolivia, and other locations that have megalithic structures. And why is it that all of the large granite boxes appear to have significant damage, especially in the corners? And now, this other object on the first floor has obvious tube drill holes. Again, this is granite containing quartz crystal. In order to be able to produce a drill that could cut through this, you need to have at least diamond level technology. And now we're in what's called the Amarna
Oh,
section,
come on.
which is where we find a collection of statues and other works of Akhenaten, who personally is my favorite of the pharaohs. Here he is portrayed as being androgynous, possibly. It is believed by some experts on Akhenaten that he physically did look different from the average human being.
Alright, I should go for the
and
fast
he simply
second cam
told his
again.
artisans, portray me as I am. That shows that
Medication?
he had a high level
Oh,
of
dude, yeah,
personal
good luck, my man.
confidence.
Good luck, my dude.
And here we have a classic
Take care, my
portrayal
man. Thanks for being
of
here,
the
homie.
Aten sun god with Akhenaten with possibly an elongated head.
Yeah.
There's Nefertiti on the left.
Proud of you, man. Alrighty.
And here we have the famous busts of his daughters, including Meritaten, who obviously is shown with an elongated head.
Good luck,
And
man.
here, another view. It's
Proud of
amazing
you.
that only about a year ago we were allowed to start taking photographs and filming inside this museum. Before that, it was illegal. But that's what's happening in Egypt. So please consider joining us in April 2019.
Oh, it does a job, yeah, true.
So these are related books of mine at Amazon.com. Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt. I'm going to be producing volume 2 soon of this book. Then Aftershock, the Ancient Cataclysm that erased human history. This is all about the ancient cataclysm 12,000 years ago. And The Enigma of Cranial Deformation by David Hatcher Childress and myself. And Akhenaten, the Heretic Pharaoh. So we're starting at the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, which is reasonably close to Luxor. And this is a dynastic construction. You can see the massive size of these columns. There are actually probably too many than are what are required. But the major fascinating thing here are what are called the Dendera light bulbs. Now, whether they actually are light bulbs or not is very much up in the air. You can decide for yourself. But they're located in a very small underground chamber, which takes special access to get into. And this is what they look like. There are actually, I believe, 8 of them. You can see they kind of look like a light bulb, but other people say that there's something else. Another term used is a Crookes tube, which is a very simple light instrument.
I freaked out.
And here's a little video showing you the detail. The lighting in here is quite terrible, but it's a secret little chamber, very narrow access, and these are very curious sculptures. Then outside we see what are called keystone cuts, and there are hundreds of them here. It's likely that there were originally either bronze or wooden plants to hold these sandstone blocks together. Probably wood, because that would take a lot of bronze. And now we're in the Valley of the Kings, and these are phenomenal
Wow, insane boost.
shaft systems that of course were used as tombs, but it's highly unlikely that the pharaonic people or the dynastic people constructed them, because they're hundreds of feet long. Here's a diagram of the burial place of Seti I, and you see the hundreds of feet that these go on in the bedrock in the Valley of the Kings. There's no way that this could have been done with hand tools. They're way too long. So you can see this is actually quite close to the entrance, going back out.
Like, fuck off.
And as I walk further back, these things are perfectly bilaterally symmetrical and just phenomenal. And this is the nature of the stone of the areas. You can see that it naturally fractures. So the idea that these were cut out with hand tools is quite ridiculous. They were probably done using some kind of high technology long before the dynastic times. Now we're at the Ramesseum. This is what remains of a 1,000-ton granite statue. And this is the base that weighs 500 tons. Now the quarry for this is hundreds of kilometers away. And what's most curious are the weathering patterns on the granite, because this is not the way the granite naturally weathers. The surfaces are peeling off, and here you see all these crack marks. It's likely that this was a site hit by an ancient cataclysm 12,000 years ago. Now this is the dynastic aspect, these columns with the giant sculpture in the background. And this is one of the artifacts that I also believe was hit by this cataclysmic episode that was probably solar plasma from the sun. Here you can see that the crystal structure has expanded and the sculpture is basically falling apart. This is not simple vandalism. And here again, you see the crystal structure has expanded. Geologists have told me this would be the result of very fast, very high heat, thousands of degrees Celsius. And this once was a granite stone too, but you see, it's basically, the surface is falling apart. And here again, the surface is sloughing off. And all the scorch marks, the discoloration, indicative of high heat. And the greatest example are the colossi of Memnon, especially this one on the left. The front surfaces are far more damaged than the sides or the back, so it appears that the solar pulse or plasma struck it from the east at sunrise. You see here, the sides are not as badly damaged. Part of the arm has been ripped off of it. And you also notice the scorching marks of the heat. And again, the sides are relatively intact. And here's a short video of the magnificent colossi. They weigh 720 tons each. The one on the left is a single block of stone. The one on the right was actually badly repaired during Roman times. And as we start to walk around to the side of the sculpture, again, you see the front here, extremely badly damaged. That could not have been done simply with somebody trying to vandalize it. So this is a scale model of what Luxor originally looked like. I believe it had 11 obelisks originally. And here again we see the overall layout of dynastic Karnak. It's one of the largest archaeological sites in Egypt and in fact the world. And this is the dynastic aspect, as in sandstone column construction. What we're going to focus on, though, is the pre-dynastic, much more ancient works in harder stones. So there appears to have been a cataclysmic event that happened at Karnak and other locations about 12,000 years ago. And in the case of Karnak, the path of destruction seems to have been solar plasma that went right down this route that I'm walking. Interestingly, it's 23.5 degrees off east-west, so the planet might have been in a different axis at that time. And what we're looking at is major destruction to the hard stone surfaces, such as granite and basalt. This groove is a power saw mark of some kind, indicating lost ancient high technology in the past. And here we get to have another look at it. Perfectly even. And also these core drill holes that we find not only at Karnak, but also other sites such as Abu Sir. And you can see this core drill is massive in size, very industrial, very ancient. And then we also see the granite surfaces here have basically been burned off. This is not destruction by some tribal people. This is some kind of cataclysmic solar plasma, according to the theory of people such as Dr. Robert Shaw. And here again we see another example of it. The upper part of that column was in good shape, but the lower section is basically burnt off. And here again you see the interior of what's called the Holy of Holies.
Man, terrible. Really,
and
really
it
bad.
too shows scorching, and the stone is basically peeling off the surface. Now, in another location, we have this incredible object made of calcite. It originally was one piece of stone. That's the absolute truth. It was originally one piece of stone. It's been badly repaired in more recent times, but no one has any idea where the quarry for this stone is located. It's likely not even from Egypt. And here we see the interior. Again, it's been heavily repaired, but originally it was one block of stone, which is incredible. Here you see the detail of the outside surfaces. And the fact that the corners, at least on the inside, are not sharp angles, they're actually curved. So some theories are that this was a resonant structure of some kind, and the reason for the curved surfaces in the corners was to allow sound or other vibration to move through the structure freely. Then as we move back into the core area, again we see ancient stone blocks with the surfaces basically burnt off. And this has been attested to by geologist Susan Moore, who will be speaking to you in this video shortly. But again, along this axis path, 23.5 degrees off of east-west, these surfaces are hugely damaged, such as here, once again. And it's only in this direct area that this damage has occurred. So looking up, you can see that the affected area is from the surface up about 50 feet. The obelisk surfaces above that are still intact, but the lower surfaces have been affected, especially the eastern side. Eastern side affected much more than the other surfaces, so the force came from the east. And again, more of the amazing ancient core drill holes. Many different theories as to why they were done, why they were made, but they are at least as good, if not better, than 21st century technology. So again, we see another surface from the bottom up, badly eroded from some kind of heat. Upper area is not affected. And then as we continue along the path, going outside, still moving along this 23.5 degrees off east-west axis, again, you see the surfaces of the stone are weathered beyond that of normal, typical weathering by heat, by sun and rain, etc., but by some enormous force.
What? Like, why?
So once again, this is not the normal way that granite, for example, erodes. And then we also have surfaces of calcite. So the enormous heat of this plasma strike affected the stones in different ways. Calcite, it broke it into several pieces. And you can see the surface there on the right is sloughed off, maybe because of crystal expansion inside. And then we also see two more of these curious ancient core drill holes. But why just take my opinion? Let's listen to geologist Susan Moore and Patricia Awian. Okay, we're here with geologist Susan Moore. And
Don't know why I
Susan
aim.
is
Every time I hit the
going to
first camera, I
describe
always
the
spend
phenomenon
time to
that
aim on the
happened
second when I
to
shouldn't.
this
I should just
stone,
YOLO
which
it.
is a granite-like stone, I believe.
It's subconscious.
These stones in this little area, they've been puzzlement to us for numerous years. We keep trying to figure out what went wrong with these, why they're like it. And if you look at the rock here, you can see that the inner portion of the rock is a coarser crystal inside, and the outer side seems to have a finer crystalline crust. This is a fairly wide crust. This is a mineral crust. We just don't know why it's doing this. We actually see the same thing in a color over here. And, unless we could analyze these things, we're probably never going to know. But what it looks like to me, and this is just sheer speculation, is that the inner portion of this has recrystallized, and as it cooled, the outer portion of it cooled down slow, quicker, and made this finer grained crust.
Okay, and that would likely be the result of intense heat.
Okay, we've been coming here since the first time we started exploring this whole long around, and the Jesus would bring us in here and say, this is a whole lot of holes. And the first thing we noticed is the destruction of this particular granite, or is it? I'm sorry.
Diorite.
Yeah. This particular rock, you can see its destruction. The destruction's from the inside out. And what is, what would cause something like that? So our theory was it was the energy inside. But as we move in our research and our learning, we think about all the different possibilities. Yes, maybe the energy, that they're harnessing the magnetic current here, but is there another event from above that connects and hits is attracted to this magnetic energy that causes this explosion? And as Susan would just explain, could create something like this that we can't create today with our mind.
Now here we are on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, of course. There you see the Great Pyramids in the background. That's what's called the second pyramid. Where we're going today is what is called the Osiris Shaft. And this has not been open for decades, if not hundreds of years, to the general public. But thanks to the new Minister of Supreme Antiquities, it's open if you want to literally rent the space for 2 hours. Now, it's not open to the general public. It requires a special permission and fee, and that special permission or fee costs between $2,000 and $3,000 for a 2-hour period. But we decided to do that for our guests, and we will do this every year on our tour from now on. So this is our group lining up. The door has been unlocked, and so gradually we're going to start moving in. So this is the uppermost level, which is in the bedrock itself. And here comes Jason, who was in our group in March 2018, clearly thrilled at what he saw. And now we move in. Again, this is the surface level, which is in the bedrock itself. And now we look down to the second level. Now, I'm not going to tell you immediately how many levels there are. This is all part of the incredible experience of this space that has only been open since, I believe, November 2017. Now, this is down in the second level. You can see it's quite small. Nothing too incredible to look at in this space, except the fact that, again, it's cut in the bedrock. And this is giving you a view from the second level with the ladder up to where we first entered. So this is about 12 of us out of a total of 30 getting ready to go down into the next level. But of course, because of the nature of the space, only a certain number could go down at a time. But this is looking down into what is the next level of the Osiris Shaft. Again, cut into the bedrock. This could not have been done with hand tools during the dynastic period, with bronze chisels, etc. So now we're down in the next level and looking up to the level above, which was the small room. You can see the ladder on
what's
the
up,
right is
Toronto
very rickety.
Toad?
A newer one
Toronto
was installed,
Toad,
which is on the left-hand side. And it is quite a
What's up,
safe
Toad?
experience to go down.
How are you, man? Toronto
Now,
Toda.
looking into this room, there
Oh,
are
yeah.
6 niches, and in 2 of the niches
Toronto
are
Toda.
large stone boxes. You can see
What's up,
the
my man?
tool marks here in the wall. The lighting isn't that great,
I like it.
so flashlights, of course, were
What's up,
required.
Joseph?
And then, again,
What's good,
this
man,
is one
dude?
of these stone boxes you can see on the left. Very
I don't
mysterious.
know. I don't have an answer for you.
This is moving into one of the niches. Again, 4 of them are empty. What has happened to the actual boxes excuse
That
me, if
fourth
they were
cam
even
was
in
good.
there,
That's what was good,
is
right?
unknown. But now we're going to focus on this, which is one of the boxes that has this very mysterious goo-like organic material on the surface and also inside.
What's up, Rosif?
Next time we go in, I would like to actually take a sample in order to find out what that material is. It doesn't appear to simply
Like
be
why?
fire or smoke, but there's very little smoke on the ceiling. It seems as though something happened to whatever or whoever was inside the box, like an explosion of some kind. And then this is the other box, which is more roughly shaped. And inside,
It's just so dumb.
mysterious, massive damage. Again, as if the interior of the box exploded. Very strange. This isn't simply tomb robbers going in and trying to extract material from the interior. There's something, some kind of chemical process went in here, which is very weird. So again, looking up the ceiling, it's a splat, but not what I would call smoke or carbon material from a flame. Some other kind of strange phenomenon occurred here. And this box, supposedly the material is not granite, it's not basalt, it's not cyanite, it's not diorite. It's a stone that is not found in Egypt. So weighing in at a minimum of 30 tons, where did this stone come from? How was it shaped? And how was it brought down the shaft system into this niche? Here again, you can see the tool marks, very similar,
What?
almost scraping like tool marks. And then we're looking down into what will be the actual bottom level of the Osiris shaft. This is Yusuf Awiyan, who was one of our guides. The water that he's in
Why?
is
Like,
crystal
why?
clear, and he's standing on top of another giant box that's submerged underwater.
Just so
We are
dumb.
presently 200 feet minimum underground in the Osiris shaft. And there is underground water, of course, at Giza. But this water is crystal clear. So where exactly did it come from? And was it intended that this water be in there and be part of whatever process this structure originally performed? Because they call it a symbolic tomb, which is a really cheap way of saying we don't understand what
I
this
think the
was made
creation
for,
of the
who
Aswan
made it,
Dam
and when it was
increased
made.
the
Clearly
subterranean
megalithic,
water level in
and
Egypt.
thus it's likely
That's why a lot of the
at
underground
least
stuff is
12,000
underwater now.
years old,
Because
and
it
was
raised the
found
water
by the
table.
dynastic Egyptians
Isn't that
who
wild?
did not construct this, because this possibly could be beyond 21st century technology that was involved, which we see also at other places in ancient Egypt. The clear signs of lost ancient high technology that was present long before the time of the pharaonic people. I believe the stone is called dacite. I might be wrong. That would be D-A-C-I-T-E. Interestingly, inside this niche is a recessed area where a human-sized sarcophagus could have once been. That could have been an actual dynastic burial, but the other two boxes and the ones submerged underwater were beyond the technological capability of the dynastic Egyptians, and thus has to be much, much older.
Come on, I hate this game. I hate this game,
So as
guys.
far as I know, only
Come
a
on,
handful
man.
of groups have been in the Osiris shaft since its opening in November of 2017. You can rent the space if you want. Minimum cost is $2,000 US.
I hate
but
myself.
That is what we do
I only have myself to
on
blame.
each of our
I don't hate myself,
yearly
but
tours,
I can't blame the
usually in
game.
March or April. We do very special things for our guests. We get access to other places which are very, very difficult for the
a common traveler or tourist to get to see. So that's why we like to believe that our tours are very special. That's why there is a definite focus, not so much on the dynastic people, though that is covered, but more on lost ancient high technology and trying to unravel who did this work,
Fuck off.
when this work was done, why it was done. And of course, you can learn more about this
This game,
under
man.
tours on my website at hiddenincatours.com. So we did have a full 2 hours. Here's Yusuf climbing back out of the water again. And this was an amazing adventure because for many, many years I wanted to go inside this Osiris shaft, but of course it was always padlocked, and even requests with the authorities were met with deaf ears. They refused to even think about the idea of allowing anybody in there. But the new Antiquities Minister is very progressive. He understands that opening up more of these sacred ancient spaces brings more tourism, but what it also does is it allows us, the researchers, to try to unravel the secrets of ancient places, such as here on the Giza Plateau, as well as the other sites all the way from Tanis,
Yo, what's up, something out of Jack?
in
How you
the
doing,
Nile
bro?
Delta area in the north,
What is up?
south to Aswan, where we find amazing things such as the unfinished 1,200-ton obelisk in the quarry at Aswan. So I hope you've enjoyed this adventure. We will definitely be going back
What's
to
up, man?
the
Hope the
Osiris
move is
shaft
going well, dude.
in April of 2019 on our very special tour, limited to 42 participants. And so these are related books at hiddenincatours.com and also amazon.com. Aftershock, the ancient cataclysm that erased human history. Lost ancient technology of Egypt. Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt, Volume 2, that thoroughly covers the Osiris shaft.
For a shopping mall.
The Enigma of Cranial Deformation, co-written
Insane.
with David Hatcher Childers.
That's cool. You a plumber?
And Akhenaten, the Heretic Pharaoh, truly an enigmatic and fascinating
Or
ancient person.
a carpenter, house
This is the
builder,
famous
mall
step
builder,
period of
construction.
Djoser or Zoser.
That's cool.
And this is likely the first time that the dynastic Egyptians tried to build a large pyramid.
It's awesome, man.
But what do you make of this
Good job.
shaft cut into the solid bedrock? It's one of many in this location at Saqqara, and it's likely a pre-dynastic construction
Wholesale
made by
plumbing
the
buying.
master builders, because we
Nice.
also find these on the area
That's smart.
of Giza, as in where the Great Pyramids are located. So I'm not interested in the dynastic period. Though
So
it
you're
shows
like
what the
a
history of
redistribution
ancient
type of
Egypt.
guy.
What I'm looking for are examples of lost ancient high technology and catastrophic
Most of
damage.
this is-
So what we're seeing here are very hard stone surfaces that appear not to have been necessarily vandalized, but more likely were victims of a massive
Formito
cataclysm of some
Popan.
kind. Now some of these surfaces you can see the weathering is very strange. It's like the stones were hit with a very high heat. Not simple vandalism, though of course the structures would have been utilized as quarries during the
That's insane.
dynastic times and also well into the Roman times. But what has happened to this little pyramid? It's not simply people taking hammers and trying to break it up. It looks like it has been struck by high heat. And we'll see many other examples of this that tend to support Dr. Robert Schock's
Section 8
theory
apartments now crazy, wow,
that
insane.
plasma was ejected from the
Here
sun,
it's
struck
a
certain
government
parts of the
government
earth
bought
about 12,000
half
years
of the
ago.
top floor, so like a quarter of the mall for like
So
a
when you look at the
DMV
top layer of
service
the
Service
soil,
Ontario, Service
See,
Canada.
it's orangey, brownish looking. That's what happens to limestone when
The
it's
mall I
hit
grew
with
up
very
in,
high heat. And here is another example. The top surface is there.
The mall I grew up in. I sound like such a North American capitalist of my
And
generation.
again, how was this little
Which I am.
pyramid, which was immaculately constructed, how was it damaged so heavily like this?
Dude, malls
Again,
are
my
crazy.
theory, and when
They
we
have
look
like
at these
granite
burn
floors
marks that
and
you
like
see on the
marble
surface of the
floor and stuff.
limestone, was
It's
that
crazy.
This pyramid
I would love to
and others
live in
were
a
hit
mall
by
that has marble
solar
and
plasma
granite.
12,000 years ago. And then later, they were found by the dynastic Egyptians somewhere around
Man, the last time I was in the
5,000.
mall, I was just tripping
So
out of the
let's go
floor at the
inside
granite floor
pyramid
and the
here,
marble.
Pyramid
It was
of Unas.
like friggin' Versailles,
Unas was
dude.
a pharaoh. He was quite
Without the
possibly
gold.
buried in this pyramid, but he and his people did not construct it. The walls in this case appear to be granite.
Yeah, Eaton
on the
Center's
left
always busy.
and
And
right
Yorkdale.
sides,
Yorkdale's
the
pretty busy
lid
too.
or ceiling, and that granite would have been brought from at least 500 miles away from
What?
the quarries at
What?
Aswan. And here again, the walls appear to be granite. If this was used for strength, that is a possibility. However, it may have been used for energetic purposes, which is something I get into in other videos that I've done about Egypt.
What, the stupid wall, man?
And now we're going to go into the back recess underground here at the Unas Pyramid and have a look
Oh,
at this really intriguing box
Interesting.
that some people would say is a
That's true.
sarcophagus. But the stone
and because
is
the
very
subway is there,
fine,
like the subway traffic.
grained granite, and again,
Park and ride or
the box would
whatever
have had to have
bullshit.
been transported from
Bus
Aswan,
station.
which is more than 500 miles away. And it appears that the lid was supposed to hermetically seal the box. Now, for most of their time, dynastic people only had Bronze Age level technology, so there's no way that they were able to shape this box with such finesse. So this Unas Pyramid has been recently opened up for us to explore. We were there in March of 2018. And now we're going to climb back outside of it and explore more of the Saqqara area. So once again, the Gyozur Pyramid or Zoser Pyramid. And this could be a construction done by the dynastic people because you see it's relatively small stones that are stacked on top of each other. But I wonder where those staircases go. They appear to go underground somewhere. Maybe they connect with the ancient tunnel system, which is spoken of not only here, but also throughout the Giza Plateau area, which is immense. It's not just the area where you find the Great Pyramids, but it includes places like Saqqara, Abu Sir, Abu Rawash, etc. And now we look down, you see the top level is dynastic, but below that, cut into the bedrock. So again, the bedrock cutting is probably a pre-dynastic work. And here we have another look at that. See, stacked stone on top of cutting into the bedrock itself. Now, here we are at one of my favorite places at Saqqara, and this is called the Serapeum. Again, notice that the upper layer appears to be burnt or scorched by heat. And as we walk into the Serapeum, this is one of the most spectacular places by far in all of ancient Egypt because of the mysterious boxes we're going to look at. The site was discovered by the archaeologist Mariette, I believe in the 19th century, and had been relatively unknown for a long period before that. It is literally underground. The dynastic people probably found it.
Yo,
but
any
the
Nikki fans in
construction you're going to
chat?
see
Yo,
could
what's
not
up,
have been
man?
done by the dynastic people.
Yes.
The first thing is, if the lights weren't on, this place would be pitch black. And so how could they possibly have quarried out this huge tunnel system that goes through it? There's no appearance of any soot or anything like that on the ceiling. And so the construction of this tunnel system, which appears to have been repaired, as you can see on the left, different periods of time, the lighting must have been artificial in some way. And though that sounds hard to believe, You will
Guys,
believe
they
it when you
canceled her.
see
Where
what
is
these
she?
boxes look like.
Leave Nikki alone.
It
Where is
appears
she,
in
guys?
some ways
Where did
that
she
the
go?
Serapeum is a climate-controlled atmosphere.
I might have to start following her on
Because every
Instagram, my
time I've been
friends.
there, and it's been
Just
at
for,
least 6 times so
you know,
far,
just for
it's always about 70 degrees
checking up on her,
Fahrenheit,
of course.
or approximately 20 degrees Celsius, which is a very
No, I love my
pleasant
girlfriend.
temperature. It's not like something like the interior of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, which is very, very warm. So the coolness, of course, is because it's subterranean, but the question is, what are these immense objects that we're about to see? How were they created? What were they possibly used for? And why, when Mariette discovered them, were all of the lids, except one, pried open? Very mysterious place.
Toad, have you heard the
So the
conspiracy
lid of
theory
this
that they
box weighs
made
30 tons,
Cardi
and the
B
box
to replace
itself
Nicki Minaj?
weighs 70 tons. So that's 100 tons. And you can see the highly polished surfaces with the really crappy hieroglyphics done. Conventional academics insist that the shaping of the
I think it's a
box
win-win, to be
and
honest.
the hieroglyphics are contemporary with one another. But that is
Oh, I mean,
completely
both of them
ridiculous. It's quite
existing
obvious that
and being
the
around.
Aztec people found these boxes in situ,
For
and in
music.
some cases decided to carve hieroglyphics in some of them.
No, well, that's
Again,
the entire
stone
conspiracy
likely
theory. I
came
told you the
either from
entire
Eastern Desert
entire thing.
or from
Now you know.
Aswan. Also, these recesses you can see in the walls are
I gotta change
larger
your
than
new
the
name,
length
man,
of
on the
lid of box.
advertisement.
So that means
I gotta
that
update
the
it.
indentations were likely made so that the
I'll update it
tops,
after,
30
later.
tons apiece, could swivel
Toronto
open.
Toda.
And again, the surfaces beautifully polished. The lid fits on so tightly that it would hermetically seal the box. There's no way a Bronze Age culture
Okay, I fucking hit
could
that
have
thing so many
possibly done
times.
this work. Though the hieroglyphics, of course, they very much could have done.
The
They are
Toronto
very crude,
Toda.
and because
Oh
of
my
the granular
god.
nature of the
Toronto, I do. Toronto
of the
Toda.
granite with the quartz content, that's why the lines are not straight. And why are these
Yo,
indentation
Spook Dog,
areas
thanks, man.
polished as well?
Thanks, homie.
It's very odd that the original builders didn't make them perfectly flat surfaces. If this was a
This one's
resonance
nice.
box of some kind, or high technology, or some other function, it
Appreciate
could be
that.
that the indentations were for final tuning of the box, because the acoustics inside are absolutely astonishing, and the box
The Valley
loves
box,
the
yeah.
sound of the tone Om.
Thanks, Spook Dog. I need it.
So again, the hieroglyphics are so crude, whoever the artisan was, he
Stupid
could
dog,
not
man.
even, or she, could not even make a straight line because of the granular nature and the content of very hard quartz, which is in the material itself. But the high polish of the surfaces is quite amazing. You would likely need to have something like diamond dust
The
or
Toronto-
powder to be able to produce a polished surface like that. And then as we turn, we're going to explore the fact that there are more than 20 of these massive boxes in situ
I'm gonna need the lock.
in the Serapeum
This is not a run.
at Saqqara. Now, not only are they in
What?
the niches,
Why?
but you can notice they're about 5
Did you
feet
give
down
love
into
to
the
get
niche.
love? Yeah, man.
So
You
the
do,
box would
dude.
have to have been
You
moved
do.
through the corridor, turned around a corner, and be gently
You do,
placed
man.
downwards by about 6 feet or 2 meters
I know it has.
into the niche itself. And again, intriguing
No.
that the interior walls are wider so that the
It's less
top
accurate,
of
but
the box could swivel freely. But how are you going to move a 30-ton lid by hand in such a narrow space?
it's the strat.
So we continue walking through the
Unless you're
tunnel
perfect ace and you
labyrinth
can just
system
shoot it with
through
your
the
PB7.
Serapeum. And this little hallway connects up with the second long tunnel. It does not have niches in it, but it seems to be the way that the stone boxes
magazine and
were
zoom.
transported into the other tunnel system. And what we're going to see here is very much telltale as to what was going on in ancient Egypt before the time of the dynastic people.
Yeah, exactly. It sprays.
What we're coming up to is
It
one of
does,
the
my
giant
man.
boxes without the lid, and the surface
I think the
is
first 3
relatively
bullets
rough,
are
so
the
it was
most
shaped
accurate, I think.
likely before it was brought into the tunnel system of the Serapeum.
So you want to get the first 3 bullets.
And this is like it's locked in time. Something happened at the Serapeum, stopping all work. Once
You
again,
can go
there's
6.
no soot or anything like that on the ceilings, and so candles or torches or whatever.
Bulldogging spook
would
because he
not
was
have
scared
been
of loud
used,
noise. Oh, no way.
in the fabrication
That's cool. That's a nice
of
story.
the tunnels or the movements of the boxes themselves.
PP7, that's funny.
So artificial lighting of some kind would have to have been used,
That's funny.
and this goes along with the fact that these boxes had to have been made utilizing high levels of very advanced technology, in some cases technology beyond our capacity today. So as we walked past
Oh
the
my
unfinished
gosh.
box that likely would have been finished
That's a cool
once
story.
it was very close to its niche, we see in the background the lid that was to accompany the box.
The
So it's
back
very
was just
likely,
so
and
terrible.
it's telling us that the box would have been moved first, then the lid second. The box would have probably then been put into its niche, then the lid, 30 tons, put on top of the box. But how was the polishing done to make such a beautiful seal?
Brian
And
Forster's
then we
just
have
say it
this
would
other
fit into this
orphaned lid
bitch.
here, and we're going to go back into
Oh,
the main
niche.
tunnel to see where its companion box might be located.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
So again, this is the main tunnel, and here you can see the flashlights glinting off a smaller box, but very finely crafted, with some crude hieroglyphics put on later. This is the companion box for that monstrous lid that we saw just previously. You can see it wasn't finally finished, so the finishing would have to have been done in the niche itself. And Saqqara is a massive, massive site.
Thank you for watching all
So
the
there are
ads
other
too.
underground
If everyone's just
structures
struggling through the ads, I
listed.
appreciate it.
Not as
Please use an
impressive
ad
as
blocker
the
if you
Serapeum,
want.
but still,
If you have one.
if you're going to spend the entire
I got a
day
couple ad blockers
at
here.
Saqqara, then it's well
Quote
worth
139 and
making
134
efficient
or
use of your
140.
time. So in the
Here's
case
a
of
list for
climbing
Firefox and
into
here's one for Chrome,
this
I
little
think.
tunnel, which again appears
Ad
to be lined
blockers.
with granite, then you literally have to get on your hands and knees.
But I mean, like, I really
and
recommend ad
crawl.
blockers
There's a
on
lot of
Twitch,
dust and ground up limestone on the
right? Like,
floor.
otherwise it's just
So
too much.
You'll definitely have to wash your clothes.
Not even
after
just for
this
me,
little
for everybody.
adventure. But that's what visiting ancient Egypt, especially
Some revenue,
with
right?
us,
It does, man.
is all about. It's
I've been
seeing as
averaging
much as
$20 a
possible
month
and focusing on the
in
most
ads the last
mysterious
2 months.
ancient constructions that could not have been achieved
pretty
by
wild.
the dynastic Egyptians, telling us that standard history is very short-sighted and that there are thousands
Helps
of years
generate you some
of
revenue, right?
time
It's fine. I always
in
wanted to know
ancient
more
Egypt
ridge
that
walls.
are not
Less
documented
ridge wall.
properly
Then I'm not
by
getting one. Oh, no
standard
worries, man. Thanks,
academia.
man.
Now this box appears to
homie.
be made of limestone, which could have been
I mean, if you use
achieved
the ad blocker,
possibly
I
by the
don't know
dynastic
if it
people with their bronze
affects
tools.
it.
But what are the strange scorch marks? that you
0,
see on the
yeah.
stone,
I mean, I've
just
been
like we saw on the
I've
surface
streamed over
of the
100
little
hours
pyramid
in the
of
last
Unis.
30 days.
So where? Now this is what is called the
So,
Valley Temple. That's its common
It's about
You can notice that it's limestone that is
What is that?
excessively
What's the math
weathered
on
and
that?
eroded. The
100
external
hours,
surface
$20
has
in
been
ads.
Removed over the course of time to be recycled.
I can't do
for
math
other
and play Goldeneye at the
structures,
same
likely in the city
time.
of
My brain
Cairo.
just
But the amount of weathering involved is extremely interesting.
20 cents
Here's
per
a
hour.
section of the outer wall
20
of
cents per hour,
granite
right?
that is still in situ.
That's right. No?
Now, geologists have told me that the amount of weathering on the limestone surfaces above is far more than one would expect from wind and rain and sand and sun.
What? Are you serious,
say,
Russ? Get out of here,
2,000
man.
years. Luckily,
What?
this section
What a legend.
you saw
Are
there
you
of the
serious,
outer
man?
granite
Thanks,
core is
man.
still in place.
What?
But
Thanks,
here
dude.
you're looking at megalithic-sized
What?
stones, obviously. The granite outer facing was brought
Oh, was I
from,
not playing on...
most
Whoops.
likely the Aswan
I think I was
Quarry,
playing on Double O
which is
Agent, my
about
friends. Can you
500,
imagine?
miles to the south, or 800
Yo, Russ, thanks,
kilometers.
bro. That's sick,
And
man.
you're looking at serious
Everybody
tonnage,
follow Russ.
and all of
He
these
streams
stones
GoldenEye.
interlock, or
Go
originally
follow him.
interlocked
Give him a
very
follow.
beautifully without any mortar whatsoever involved. And again, here we are walking along, and this is what's called the Sphinx Temple in front of the Sphinx. And in fact, the Valley Temple and the Sphinx Temple
Yeah, I should move to
were originally
kick.
the same structure. Here again are some of the
Still decent
granite
and worth it.
outer-facing blocks that are still somewhat intact.
Oh, wow. Kick is completely ad-free?
See the
Wow.
Great Pyramid in the background?
Interesting.
And again, you're looking at serious tonnage here in terms
Yeah,
of
I
limestone
maxed out my
core.
ads, though.
Blocks weighing 10,
maxed them out.
20, perhaps
Like,
40
absolute
tons.
max.
The weathering is extreme, and we believe
Yo, thanks,
that this
Russ. Thanks, I
structure
appreciate that,
is
man.
contemporary
And also with
the
subs, since I
structure
maxed
of
out
the Sphinx,
the
meaning
ads,
that it is 12,000
the subs,
plus
the ads that they
years
skip, I
old,
get paid
and
for, you know what I
based
mean?
on what
So even if subs
geologists,
sitting here,
200
I get paid for the
from
for the
around
ads
world
that they
tell
skip.
us, based
I'm pretty
upon
sure.
the weathering patterns.
Kick will introduce
So,
ads if they get big enough.
inside the so-called Valley Temple, notice the amount of erosion on the
So what's the
bottom of
revenue
this
just from?
pillar
Just from
compared to
viewers?
higher up, which we will see in other video clips.
That's
The
crazy.
bottom
Like from
half
contributing.
roughly seems to be heavily weathered. That may very
Moon
well
can
have
tell
been
you all. Yeah,
water.
Moon.
And here you see
Moon viewer.
interfacing
Based
granite
in
stones
Moon enjoyer.
that originally were very tightly
Yo,
fitted
thanks,
together.
Russ.
Again, the granite all came most likely from
Were you? I guess you were lurking in the
Aswan Quarry
weightlifting stream
in
yesterday too, man. I'm
Aswan
glad. That's
itself,
nice.
the very southern part. of
Stream
the
a lot of
region.
random shit. I'm probably gonna stream me skateboarding tonight
Again, notice the
or
weathering on the
playing
lower
basketball
section.
later. That's probably gonna be a reality.
And here, again, we're still inside the Valley Temple.
So they'll choose ads
See
eventually.
how the blocks interlock almost perfectly.
Thanks, bro.
There was no mortar originally, but they've done repair work, and so they've done some
Yeah.
filling in.
Give Russ
in
Jericho
recent
23 a
time.
follow.
And this is the
He
passageway that
Streams
takes us
GoldenEye
up
and other games.
higher onto the Giza Plateau. Again, megalithic-sized blocks of granite.
Thanks, man. Yeah, dude, for 100 hours,
And
$20, 20
geologists
cents an
have told us
hour.
that the amount of weathering here is much more excessive than would be under normal conditions.
I
over the course
average
of, say, 2,000 years.
60 to 80 views on like a
So
4 or
once we're
5 hour GoldenEye stream.
There's
Or even my
the
weightlifting
second
stream, I got
pyramid on the
63
left,
views.
and of course the Great
on a
Sphinx.
Sunday
And
afternoon.
We're going to go into some detail
So,
as regards the weathering patterns on the Sphinx. But this is a walk back around
That's just the stats.
outside of the Valley Temple. Again, the exposed
all from subs.
limestone
Wow, insane.
surfaces, some of the external granite that was covering the
Mostly
outside
G.
and the inside.
Wrestling games, nice, dude. Package runs, nice, man. Wrestling games.
And another glimpse
I
inside
got like
the
a couple
niche of the
wrestling classics.
Valley Temple, so we can see the scale.
I got
of
Revenge
the
on
granite
64.
blocks. There you see a repair that could have been done maybe in dynastic times. The floor is granite.
I have what?
walls-
Royal Rumble.
Are again these multi-ton blocks.
I think I have Royal Rumble and Raw on Genesis. Freaking amazing games.
So we go back outside.
How much water do you consume when you wake up for? Oh man, I just do this. We'll
and
do
then
the, we'll
turn
do
to
a
the left,
we'll do
have a look
a relive. Oh,
at the
oh, I hear you, bro.
exterior
Nice. That's cool, man.
of the Valley Temple.
past broadcast streams up.
that basically interlocks with what's called the Sphinx Temple. So they were originally
Thanks, man.
one
Paladin 64, nice.
homogeneous structure. Now these massive limestone blocks were taken out of what's called the Sphinx enclosure. So whoever made the Sphinx cut out these multi-ton
Oh
blocks
my god.
in order to shape.
I drink as much as I can, Toad, but sometimes it
shape
upsets
the
my
Sphinx
stomach.
itself. Each block was taken out, of course, individually.
2 cups back to back,
and
nice.
then locked into the
I just
line
do that. I
with
reach
taken
over and I
out
chug
fire.
whatever's in my.
And these vertical
cooler
weathering lines are
from
the
the night before.
indications of precipitation, and precipitation on such a scale.
Sonic the
has not
Hedgehog,
been
yeah,
seen
dude. I
in
got
this part of Egypt.
Sonic. I got Sonic 2,
Geologists tell
Sonic
us
3.
for at least 12,000 years.
Sonic 3 is an amazing game.
The head, of course, has been recarved.
Sonic 2
during
is just
dynastic
spectacular.
times, but you see the chest of the Sphinx heavily eroded. And there, with the paws, we see a lot of reconstruction that likely began during the time of Khufu. Now this shows the difference between
Yeah, that's
the bedrock
really not my
and
first
here,
thought process, Toad. I'm
blocks
gonna tell you.
in
I'm gonna be
between
honest.
the front paws of the Sphinx.
You're right though, but
And then this wooden walkway, which is in between the front paws. And again,
previous
a
videos.
lot of reconstruction has been done to the Sphinx over
Michael
the
Jackson
course
for Sonic
of
3.
possibly 4,500 years. You can see relatively modern rebuilding.
Doing both.
And much older. And then the bedrock itself. But you see that this is one of the back paws, and it clearly has been reconstructed in relatively recent times as compared to the weathering of the Sphinx enclosure. Again, major emphasis on the vertical weathering, because that indicates precipitation. And if you didn't know, there is an entrance near the very back end of the Sphinx. There is a ladder inside, so there could be a labyrinth of shafts and tunnels under the Sphinx and the entire Giza Plateau. Once again, the vertical water weathering and the excessive and extreme erosion that we find at the Sphinx. Different layers
TH
are
True
different
Wrestling.
hardnesses, so the softer layers were carved out much more rapidly than the harder layers. You
Drop
see the
like you.
undulating lines. And this shows you
Oh, I hear you.
the extent of the Sphinx enclosure itself, that the Sphinx was carved out of the bedrock itself.
I'm gonna drop it right now.
And there are the blocks taken
2
from
more
the
WCW
Sphinx
release,
enclosure
never got
to
PAL.
build
Nitro and
the
Backstage
Sphinx
Assault,
and Valley
insane.
temples. So once
Nitro,
again,
I
on
think
the
I remember
left,
that game.
You see that's bedrock. On the right, those are blocks. So the story that there is an entrance
Epic
to
games.
the Sphinx in the front is likely true, because if you look at the rectangular system of boards there, that section can actually be taken out. And so it's believed that
Backstage
the
Assault
Egyptologists
Oh,
have
no way.
discovered the underground tunnel and shaft systems that exist under the Sphinx itself, extending likely all the way at least to the Great Pyramid, if not beyond. On the left you saw that bit of repair, and the strange channel, which is really quite rough, but I never noticed this on previous trips. It's a channel that basically goes all the way around the Sphinx. Whether it was done during dynastic times or not is unknown. It's not very sophisticated.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for that sub, dude.
But just to emphasize one more time, the vertical weathering was precipitation.
We gotta spam that first
It
cam.
has not rained much around the Giza Plateau. Climatologists also tell us for at least 10, if not 12,000 plus years, making the Sphinx at least twice as old as the dynastic.
It's definitely no worries. Nice to meet you. Yo, thanks, man. Thanks, dude.
And there again is
Thank
the
you,
entrance
Spook.
to
Hey,
a
man,
shaft with a metal ladder inside.
Cool story about your dog,
Of course, it's illegal to go in there,
your late
but
dog.
I filmed it.
That is
you can see.
your amazing dog.
And more or less finally, once again, the extreme weathering marks on the limestone of the bedrock of the Sphinx enclosure. All of the repair work has been done over the Sphinx over the course of up
Peace,
to
peace, Snoop Dogg,
4,500 years.
Spook Dog TV.
Some Egyptologists insist that Khufu was the one who constructed the Sphinx,
What?
but it's likely he and Khafre were the ones who did repairs. And this shows you again the transition between the bedrock and then these blocks of limestone and the rectangular section, which underneath
why?
is believed to be the entrance to the shaft and tunnel system. Now this strange location is called Tanis, and it's in the Nile Delta.
Take care,
in
guys. Good
northern
night. Yo,
Egypt.
good night, Spook Dog. Thanks.
It takes
Thanks
three
a
and a
lot.
half
Thanks for being
hours
here.
to drive from Cairo.
Kangaroo.
And for the last 2 hours, we drive through lush vegetation and agricultural
I've been to Perth,
farmland.
Australia. I've been to Perth,
So
Western
the
Australia.
question is, why
2014.
Tanis, seemingly devoid of life,
Beautiful place.
and why is every
Saw
sculpture,
humpback
and
whales
obelisk,
jumping out of the
pillar,
water
etc.,
on a boat. It was
smashed
insane.
to pieces? This is way beyond the damage
It was
of any
unbelievable.
marauding army or vandalism. This is
was like a movie.
cataclysmic destruction, and we're going to see lots of evidence of heat scorching on the surfaces of a lot of the stone. Now, most of the stone, which is located at Tanis,
What's the most beautiful people live in
This
Perth?
is
Really?
granite, and it's likely that the granite
I mean,
came
yeah, I mean, beautiful
from the
people in
great,
Perth. I would think
quarry
it'd be
at
the
Aswan,
gold
and
and
Aswan is
the Gold
1,000
Coast.
kilometers to the south.
Isn't that where Jobs is
How
from?
was
Carl
all
Jobs
this
from the
transported?
Gold Coast.
These are small pieces.
He's
Again,
quite
notice
beautiful.
The very strange erosion of the surface.
I'm serious. I'm not like
And
being
the
an
only
asshole.
piece that seems to have been intact
He's from Brisbane,
is
I
this
think.
quartzite box. The
Oh, Adelaide.
hieroglyphics
Yeah,
were
of course,
likely
Adelaide
done
for you,
by
Moonraker,
the
of course, because
dynastic
you're there.
Egyptians,
I understand.
But it's clear that the dynastic
100%.
Egyptians found the site of Tanis in
Wow.
complete destruction, so they decided to build there and recycle with what they found. Now again, is this erosion natural or normal, or could it be the result of intense blasts of heat? This gives you the visual. Again, you can see that Tanis is more or less devoid of life, except for the odd thorny bush, like the one you can see on the right here. And when you walk on the surface, it's not like you're walking in sand or on dirt, but more like flour, as if all of the nutrients was burnt out of the soil itself. This gives you an idea of the sheer volume of stone found at Tanis. Again, likely from the Aswan granite quarry, 1,000 kilometers to the south. And as you can see, every single stone shows incredible levels of damage. Archaeologists tried to put this sculpture together, but it
Why did he
doesn't
say Western
look
Australia?
like
It doesn't. That's
some
weird.
of the
Such a random comment.
extensions of it, like the arms, were literally blown
Oh no
off.
way.
This fits in well
Insane,
with the theory
Moonraker.
of Dr. Robert Schoch regarding solar plasma striking the Earth 12,000 years ago. And this is
Full
another
pixel and no
example.
headphone. Yeah.
You can see that the right-hand side of that statue has
I don't
been
know, man.
hit with at least
You don't want to.
2,000
You
degrees
probably have a good set
Celsius.
of wired headphones. I was gonna say if you have any
Now, all of this
Bluetooth
stone
wireless ones.
was found by archaeologists in the 19th century underground.
Robert
They had
Shaw.
to dig down 10 to 20 feet in order to find Tanis. And here you can see that this wall section, in fact, was probably rebuilt by the dynastic Egyptians, possibly 2 or 3 or 4,000 years ago. And look at that slab of granite on the left where Irene is standing, massive. So this area may have been exposed during dynastic times.
I don't know what
and
Quint
they
is. I'll
built
be
that
honest.
wall
I thought you
section.
meant
There are
something else
also
when
an
you said Quint.
incredible number
I don't know
of
what Quint is.
obelisks and
I don't know who Robert Shaw
obelisks
is.
located in Tanis, more than at any other location by far.
Oh no way.
This would not have
Insane.
been a place where obelisks were manufactured.
That's
because,
funny. No,
again,
Robert
the
Shaw.
quarry is 1,000 kilometers away. So they would have been made at Aswan and then transported to different locations around Egypt. But also what we know is that the obelisks themselves are megalithic.
Run the phone into the
and they were
ground. Yeah,
constructed
sorry,
in
dude.
pre-dynastic times by a civilization that clearly had lost ancient high
I
technology.
got a pair of wireless
because
Bluetooth
the Bronze
headphones
Age dynastic people
at
could not
Dollarama
shape
for like $5
granite
bucks.
surfaces like this.
Oh,
They
you
could
lost them?
etch
No way.
in hieroglyphics, but
That
they
sucks.
couldn't shape sculptures like this.
Pile of
Now
what?
here
I hear
again,
you.
the bottom of the statue, we're seeing intense heat. This has been corroborated by
the
geologists that
system.
we've had on location.
Shocking puzzles
And
and shocking, yeah.
again, it looks like sections of that statue were blown off, not struck off. Here's another statue. See, the left-hand side has been melted. These sculptors would have made sure that the stone was very consistent and homogeneous.
Dude, that
before
guy
they
is making
started the
so much money
sculpture.
off that energy
So it's
drink.
not a
Holy
flaw in
shit.
the stones. It's a heat effect that happened to the stone
It's so insane.
in the very distant past.
I don't think I've ever bought a drink.
Again,
Like, I'm
a
thinking back to
massive
my
block of
childhood.
stone, at least
I can't
20
remember
tons.
me buying a drink
Surface
because
erosion
someone
is
friggin'
excessive.
advertised it.
And just everything
Maybe
is
211.
broken on
If
a
I saw
massive
211, I
scale.
would drink it because of Ninja
Vandals with
Lifestyle.
hammers could not do this kind of damage. This had to have been done by some
There you
sort
go,
of
that's an
natural
example.
external force
There you go.
that literally blew
I don't even
Canada
drink
to
sugar. I don't even
pieces.
consume
We
sugar,
also
and I
see
would buy a
evidence of
211.
this at other locations such as Karnak.
But the energy, it's like I read the
and
ingredients of the
Ramesseum
energy drink. It's not that
and
bad.
other
It's like coconut
locations
water
to the
based.
south. But it's here. Look, another
Has
obelisk
low
section
sugar.
on the left.
Has some artificial sweeteners
And
in
the
it, but it's
fineness and
literally
depth of
better
this
than probably
carving,
everything else
again,
out there.
appears to be machined, not done by hand. So we're looking
So I
at
didn't have an issue with my
possibility
nephew drinking it in terms
that
of
even
health reasons. Not
hieroglyphics
at
are
all.
older than the dynastic Egyptians. When you look into the background, that is the original
Maybe
level that
this artificial
archaeologists found
chemical
in this
sweeteners, 'cause they
area.
always
So they had to dig down in order to
Come up with some
expose
fucking
all of
variation of
the stone.
aspartame.
Again, look at the blackness on that stone on the right. That appears to be heat. So this is an
Someone
overview
advertised it. Oh,
of
food? I
planets,
probably
or
have.
at
Yeah,
least
definitely.
This is what we were
100%.
allowed to see. It's in the middle of an army.
I went to White
slash
Castle and ordered
police
30
base,
slider
and we were
burgers
only
after
allowed
watching
to
Harold and
see
Kumar.
a certain section of it. I started to wander off and look at other areas.
I ate
was
21 of
immediately
them.
told to come back. And so why they're being so
I consumed
secretive here
143
is
grams of fat in that
a
meal.
very good question. Again, devastating damage. The stone is
I bought
strewn all
Jordans,
over
yeah.
the place.
I bought Jordans. No, yeah.
Not a civilization moving in and taking over and
Kobe's.
deciding to destroy.
I bought a lot of
ancient
fucking basketball
structures.
shoes,
There's
actually.
another obelisk you see in the background.
Man, I had
in
the
Umayyad.
Adidas Kobe's,
Another obelisk section,
the
and then
foot,
another obelisk
where
section.
he molds like the
There
foot.
are between
The
10
blue and
20,
white shoe,
if
that was
not
insane,
more,
dude.
obelisks
like his
that
rookie
were
shoe.
found in the area, all broken.
I wore those
Again,
into the ground.
This surface appears to be machined, not done with chisels. So that is lost ancient high technology.
Blue Yeti mic, nice one.
evidence.
Oh yeah, I knew
Another
that.
section of an obelisk.
That's
with
your
very
friggin'
deep
A+
carving
mic.
into the granite surface. And of course, the stone has been lined up during
Scan.
the excavation times by the archaeologists. Here you see more sections of obelisks. And the new prevailing theory is that the obelisks were originally made
ASMR.
not as standing
It's good enough for
monuments
ASMR for
for
me. Yeah,
the
buddy.
glorification of the ancient Egyptian rulers.
I understand
but
what
in
you're
fact,
saying
they
now
were
with,
part of an
with
energetic
people recommending.
system.
I get it.
They were the receivers of
But dudes,
energy
they're going crazy for
emitted
this drink.
from the
And it's so
power
expensive, it's like
plants or
$3,
energy
$4.
structures that we call the pyramids, located around the Giza Plateau area.
I don't think
There's a
I've never
perfect
seen a Logan Paul
circular
video.
hole that could have been machined. And then we get to the tomb area.
My YouTube
And if you look
suggestions are
carefully,
not
you can see
aligned
that
with
all of the stone was
the
restacked
general public.
during dynastic times.
What does he even
the
do?
Giant blocks of granite
What are his
were laid
videos?
there originally. And the dynastic people simply took stones.
Is he like an
from the
entertainer,
area,
outdoor entertainer?
especially this limestone on the left, and piled it up.
I know
to
he
create a
boxed.
tomb. Inside this one, we find a granite box, just like
Is he like a PewDiePie?
The roughness of
Probably
the
like a
surface
PewDiePie, I
shows
guess.
that it was probably done
Or just talks
during
and stuff.
dynastic times because it's not that well done as compared to the finer craftsmanship of the older megalithic work. And then when we look up, we'll see that this top block has hieroglyphics on it. So clearly that was recycled from an older structure. The dynastic Egyptians did not move any material in terms of stone into the area.
Yeah, prime.
They simply recycled what they found.
Crazy.
And their technical prowess was not much compared to that of the earlier lost ancient high technology civilization.
I mean, the ingredients aren't
Here
so
again,
bad on
we
it.
see a much larger box, which
Honestly,
they
if I
would
was
call
thirsty
sarcophagus, with the
at a
top
friggin' gas
snapped
station
off
and
as if
they
it
didn't
was
have any
hit
water,
with
I'd probably buy a
enormous
Prime.
force.
Honestly.
And
If I was
nonetheless,
freaking so thirsty and I had no
wandering
water
through the
and
area of Tanis
they had all,
we were
everything
allowed
else
to
as
see,
usual.
which was quite extensive. And again, you can tell this area was probably exposed and opened during dynastic
Oh wow, did the
times,
trademark
and
end
the
or
stone
lapse or
was
whatever?
reconstructed, or the wall was reconstructed by
Prime is
the
great. It's
dynastic
the energy
people.
drink that's the
You
issue.
did very poor work on the left-hand side. That's an addition
Interesting, the
to
caffeine.
dynastic times. And the simple fact that this whole area here is devoid of life except for a handful of prickly bushes
Fuck off.
gives us a strong indication.
Does it have taurine
that
or
solar
whatever in it?
plasma
Taurine root or some
struck
shit?
This area about 12,000 years ago. This is corroborated by Dr. Robert
And drink
Schock,
some
who's a
cans.
geologist, and also accounted in my book, Aftershock.
Distinguish the two.
Here again, we see more melted surface
Interesting.
on this piece of quartzite. It is like a giant came in and just knocked everything to pieces, but it wasn't a giant, it was a giant force that came from outside of the Earth, plasma ejection from the sun, most likely striking at sunrise around 12,000 years ago. It could have been a series of events, not just one simple one-day event, but it could have taken place over
No
the
fun
course
allowed, eh?
of up to 300 years, according to Dr. Robert Schock.
No fun
That would
allowed.
have vaporized anything and anyone that was in this area. The soil might have been blown up into the sky and then came down and covered the whole site. Because here I am on the original surface level. This is the surface that the archaeologists found. And in order to see the artifacts, you have to climb down, again, between 10.
No, I don't think so.
And these mysterious men in black were with us. There were 4 or 5 of them. Very nice suits, sunglasses, automatic weapon hiding underneath his jacket. They were keeping a very fine eye.
I think Red Bull
on
is
our
worse.
activity, but thankfully, we were able to film. So these are related books of mine at Amazon.com.
Red Bull's way worse.
Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt, Volume 1, which does not include Tanis. Lost Ancient Technology of Egypt, Volume 2 does include a thorough chapter on the Tanis location.
Before, but spread over like 5
Aftershock,
hours. Let's
the
give it in
ancient
one sitting.
cataclysms that erased human history.
Yeah, that's insane.
And Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, the only person who lived during dynastic times that fascinates me.
No, why? What? Oh. What?
Hi, this is Brian Forster, and this is Istanbul in Turkey. Its older name, of course, was Constantinople. And this is what's called the Grand Bazaar. It's where you can buy basically anything, and I've heard that up to 200,000 people visit this site each and every day. You have to go through a metal detector, as you can tell. So here we are in the Grand Bazaar. Now, what does this have to do with megalithic sites? Well, that will be later on in the video. Just wanted to give you a sense and feel what Istanbul is like. We were there in September 2019 for about 12 days. And then trying to get out of the Grand Bazaar was a bit of a challenge, but made it. After that, looking at the cobs of corn there, we were at the Bosphorus, which is the seawater area that is in between or connects the European side of Istanbul with the Asian side. As you can see, there's incredible boat traffic that goes on, as well as ground transportation. Then on our way to the Hagia Sophia and Blue Mosque, we passed by this obelisk, which is from Karnak in Egypt. And then it was on to the Blue Mosque, which happened to be closed that day, but we did go into the Hagia Sophia.
All right, be right back in a sec.
Turkey is world famous for its incredible inlays and mosaics. And then this is outside of the Hagia Sophia. Curiously, on the outside, we found a number of these giant gray granite columns, and they were so smooth that they appear to have been turned on ancient lathes, much as like we find at Baalbek in Lebanon. And then also the presence of this purple stone, which is called imperial porphyry, and is only found in the eastern desert of Egypt. Incredibly smooth surface. So here you see the hole at one end where the ancient lathe would have attached to this rather massive column. One piece approximately 20 feet or 6 meters long. There were a number of them. Now we are inside the Hagia Sophia. At the time when it was built, it was supposedly the largest church in the world. And then it became a mosque. And more recently, it has become a museum. Now, this is the central dome. You can see all of the inlaid fresco mosaic patterns. Some of it from the Christian period, some of it from the Islamic period. And also the presence of more of these huge one-piece pillars that are very curious, because during the Greco-Roman time period, most of the pillars were made of many pieces of stone, not single ones. So it's my theory that these were actually brought from ancient Egypt and are pre-dynastic, that they were made utilizing forms of lost ancient high technology, the same as the construction of the Great Pyramid system, as well as the Serapeum boxes in the underground tunnels of Saqqara. You can see the strange scarring of the surfaces there. Now we're going to go to the second level in order to be able to look down into the main interior part of the Hagia Sophia. Up and up we go. You can see relatively crude construction techniques, relatively typical of the Roman, Greek, and later time periods. And now we're going to be going inside. Once again, beautiful inlay in the ceilings. Unfortunately, quite a bit of it seems to be peeling off. Why they are not doing repairs, I don't understand. The scaffolding is not there to fit the mosaics, but I think the basic After that, we went underground. And this is called the Basilica Cistern. If you want to read the whole thing, please pause the video. It's a massive underground system, I believe, made during Roman times, and could hold an incredible amount of fresh water for utilization in ancient Constantinople. So this is us walking through the labyrinth system
Thanks, guys.
of the cistern. And one thing that caught my eye was what's called the crying column. Again, hit pause if you want to read the whole thing. It's the only column inside that has this very interesting, all-seeing eye looking shapes carved into the single piece of column.
I appreciate that,
It took
Arsherica.
an hour to walk through there. Then it was to the Istanbul National Archaeology Museum, where supposedly they have 1 million artifacts, which is quite incredible. Quite a lot of work from the Hittite time period, as you can see here. And then these large, I believe, limestone or marble sarcophagi from the Greek time period. But what was most curious are these giant containers, which supposedly were used as sarcophagi. The stone is called imperial porphyry, and is 7 out of 10 in terms of hardness. And again, it's only found, as far as I can tell, in the eastern desert.
I'm probably gonna play for another half hour, and then I'm probably gonna sign off and go outside, enjoy the sun, enjoy the day a bit. I might stream it.
I think they actually found these in ancient Egypt.
Probably gonna do another half hour, and then I'm gonna do that.
Embellishing and detailed carving of the exterior. Also curious are these char marks that you can see where the lid and the box intersect, as if there was an internal explosion in them, which is exactly what we see in places like the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, where there are large granite boxes that show the same effect. What kind of internal explosion? We're still trying to figure that out. But these were, from a megalithic standpoint, the most fascinating aspect of visiting Istanbul on this particular day. Hi, this is Brian Forster, and today we're exploring a site in Turkey called San Simeon, which was a monastery and place of religious practice pilgrimage from about 550
Come on,
AD
man.
into the 1200s. Now, unfortunately, there are lots of these giant turbines located in the same location. But what we're going to see is that this was clearly originally a megalithic site, and then likely there was a series of cataclysms that struck it, like at other locations that we find in Egypt and Peru, for example. And then it was repaired during the Christian time period. The back wall, you can see repair work is on the top, in the center of the wall. The rest of it, most of it at least, is limestone bedrock itself. So the site was originally sculpted from the bedrock, and it's highly unlikely that this was done during the time period of 550 AD and onwards. Again, look at the blocks on the left-hand side on the top. And the fact that this was sculpted out of the bedrock. So this is what, again, we see at lots of other ancient sites in important megalithic locations such as Peru, Libya, and Egypt, but also here in Turkey. There's the central pillar where San Simeon supposedly spent the latter 40 years of his life preaching. Chester there to show sense of scale. That again is the sculpted bedrock. And in behind, you see obviously that the walls
Terrible.
have been damaged and repaired and damaged again. Here again, if you look at the upper part of the wall in the background, you see clearly that it has been repaired. So this is a short video, part of the series that I did from our recent tour of Turkey in September of 2019. And the main function of it is simply, once again, to show you the difference between the repair work that you can see and the older megalithic work. This again, clearly you see on the top where repairs have been made as compared to the massiveness of the megalithic bedrock work. And actually, I'd never heard of this site before. It just happened to be on our itinerary. When we went, we were all pleasantly surprised to find another megalithic site in Turkey. And stay tuned for an upcoming video or series of them about other locations that we visited in Turkey, such as megalithic Hattusha, and you'll see lots of evidence of lost ancient high technology, machine tool work. Hi, this is Brian Forster, and we're very close to the Mediterranean in Turkey. And what we're looking at, look at the wall on the left. This is the beginning of what's called Titus's Tunnel, supposedly created, first started by Vespasian in 70 AD, continued by Titus, Roman Emperor, in 80 AD, and completed by Antonius Pius in 161 AD. Now this, I believe, what you just saw on the right is Roman work, but there's no way that I believe that this huge opening in the bedrock was done solely with hand tools. It's just
Fuck
too
off.
big a work. Again, look at the left-hand side and look at the right-hand side. You can see that the bedrock, which is limestone, but it's also metamorphosed limestone, almost perfectly flat surfaces, vertical surfaces. And as we continue on, continue looking at the wall on the left. Again, very flat, and we haven't even reached Titus's Tunnel yet. So as we continue along, again you can see the flat surfaces in the bedrock, and here this shows you the depth of how big it is and how much work would have been required. I think this is definitely a candidate for lost ancient high technology that was found and then fine-tuned by the Romans. I don't think the Romans did this out of the bedrock. This is here, this could be a natural surface. And there in the background you can see that the giant wall continues. And on the left-hand side you saw some shaping there in the limestone. This is a classic Roman arch, so of course this would have been the work of the Romans. Not particularly superfine workmanship, but then again, the big wall continues on the left side and now on both sides. Now this is the beginning of the actual
Yo, what's up, course? This Duke Nukem looks awesome. Yeah, really.
through the bedrock. The ceiling,
What's
a
up?
minimum of 20 feet tall. The
Isn't
Romans
everything
reportedly
truly
had
just a
steel
Duke
chisels
Nukem and a Doom clone?
This is way too big.
Isn't everything just a complete ripoff of Wolfenstein 3D?
By hand during Roman times. Again, we continue along. You see a water channel that has recently been repaired on the
Rip
right-hand
off.
side. That was also probably a Roman work. So either this initially was something
What's up,
created
Clarissa?
by
Welcome.
water erosion over the course of millions of years, or it's a very good example of lost ancient high technology that was then fine-tuned during the Roman time period. As we walk
Yeah, I
up
think it's because I put
once again, look at the
FPS, first person shooter.
of the wall.
It is. On the
I
Nintendo
tried Orchard and
64.
looked very carefully at the wall in the background to see holes cut into the bedrock. Now we're in Cappadocia, which is in central Anatolia in Turkey, and I was simply blown away by the number of
Welcome.
these chambers carved into the bedrock. The material is actually quite soft. Most of it is volcanic ash. So it's not a question of using high technology to cut these chambers, but it's the sheer volume of them. Not simply in this location, but in many locations. We drove for hours and hours, kept encountering these. Absolutely.
There's no naked women in this game, though.
No, in most accounts,
There's some half-naked women,
this
though.
was done by early Christians who were fleeing
Xenia.
persecution in other countries. So most of them came to Turkey in order to escape being persecuted. But I get the gut feeling that these are thousands of years older than we've been taught, and that the Christians simply utilized them because they were already there. There are also a number of these that were turned into churches, such as this one, called the Yil-Anli Church. We're actually going to go inside. Once again, stone workmanship is relatively crude, and the material is quite soft. But they're absolutely beautiful in terms of the paintings and frescoes left behind by the early Christians.
Come on, like how many times did I hit that stupid thing?
This is a little side valley that we walked through for about an hour. It was mainly on the western side, which is the right side, that we find these churches and other chambers cut into this soft bedrock. Again, not the difficulty of making them, simply the sheer volume of them is quite incredible. In some cases, there are multiple stories. I'm about to upload soon a video about one of the underground cities that we went in the Cappadocia area. So stay tuned for that. So here we are again in another one of the churches.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go out tonight or today in the afternoon, and then I'll probably play it again tonight. Probably, maybe. I mean, I think I would want to. I'll have to see. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Here it looks like some of them are
Appreciate you
still being utilized, having wooden doors.
Staying through the ads too.
Possibly for storage. So now we move to another location. This is one of the major ancient centers where we find these chambers. And again, as we go inside, relatively deep into the bedrock, you can see the tool marks. They don't look like the use of high technology. They look simply like hand chisels to me. But again, the material is very soft. And here we're going into another one. Different niches used for different purposes. Even a second story in this one. Darkening of the walls and the ceiling from centuries of fires. Being lit by
Come on.
fires inside.
It's so dumb, guys.
And here another one.
It'll
You
happen.
can see the rough tool marks, also the darkening of the ceiling.
Oh my god. Alright, 15 more minutes. 15 more minutes and then I'm gonna go outside and enjoy the
Of course, there were
outside a
way too
bit.
many people, but simply had to deal with that on this day. Some of the other
That's the most
locations
healthy
had
way,
far
I
fewer
find.
visitors.
Play a bit and then do a little bit of physical exercise.
And then another church. This is single file going in and then trying to come back out the single entrance exit. Then another location. If you look very carefully, once again you can see the chambers in the background. And then this entire small mountain is riddled with these chambers. Again, the idea that they were solely made by Christians fleeing persecution early in Christendom is highly unlikely. They were obviously occupied by the Christians and other people. Turkey has thousands upon thousands of years of human habitation. So who knows how old these actually are. Hi, this is Brian Forster, and this is exploration in the area of Cappadocia in Turkey.
What?
We're going to visit Derikuni, which is the largest underground city in Turkey. Now, this is one of the most enigmatic and strange places I've ever visited, because supposedly it was constructed by the Phrygian people in the 7th or 8th century BC. It's 200 feet deep at least, and supposedly could house 20,000 people, as well as livestock, etc. This is one of the large shafts that goes down to the surface for air ventilation. But my honest belief is that this had to have been either a natural underground series of shafts and tunnels, or was done in the very, very distant past with some form of lost ancient high technology, and then was discovered by the Phrygian people. Because again, it's 200 feet deep, and for most of the extent that we went through, we were allowed down 10 stories, supposedly it goes down 20 stories, and without artificial light, it would be almost completely pitch black in here. The idea that they would have torches is highly unlikely as well, because the ventilation is there, but it's not extensive. So you would have all sorts of soot building up on the ceilings, and people would be choking without being able to breathe properly. There are supposedly hundreds of other underground cities in Turkey as well, but this one is the largest and deepest. Most of the other underground cities, so-called, are 1 to 2 stories, whereas this, again, we were told, is about 20 stories or 200 feet. But who knows, since we were only allowed access to the top 10 levels, it might go deeper. And there are also government records that the cities connect with one another. So they're separated, in some cases, by several miles or kilometers. So how would somebody with hand tools possibly be able to, A, carve down 200 feet into the ground and then connect one city with the next? This doesn't, to me, make any sense. Now, the stone involved is a relatively soft, probably compressed volcanic ash, but it wasn't soft enough for me to be able to scratch with a key or knife. So again, it's harder than what they state in terms of the standard story of the place. You can see how narrow the passageway is, so how would 20,000 people be able to move back and forth, except in a large chamber like this, up and down the staircase?
Come on!
The thing is that the stairs there were put in the 1960s, so before that, it was simply a series of ramps going down underground.
It's just so stupid, man.
So how easy to get down into, but how would you get back out again unless you had a number of ropes? So on the left side, not going to be able to see. Well, actually, you do see there. They're actually.
Sorry for yelling into the mic.
Where there's another.
Alright, 10 minutes. I'm going to sign off. Thank you for being here.
Air shaft that comes down for ventilation.
Appreciate it.
But in general, almost all of the area would be pitch pitch black, if not for the series of artificial lights that were installed. The other odd thing is that it was lost to history up until the 1960s, when a man was supposedly doing some work or excavations in the lower part of his house, and then he broke through and exposed the existence of this for the first time in possibly thousands of years. So again, you see how narrow the pathway is. How would you get 20,000 people moving back and forth through this? It's a very, very strange place. Very, very fascinating. You would think that the entrance would be on the side of a hill or a mountain, but as you saw in the beginning of the video, it starts simply on the surface and goes down deep into the ground. So these are the stairs that were installed in the 1960s. They're concrete. Before that, there would have been ramps.
Guys, this level, guys. This level, man.
So now we're coming back up, having gone into the ground approximately 100 feet, but it was hard to judge because the levels are very uneven. It's not like you go down 10 feet and then walk horizontally and then go down 10 feet. Some of the staircases were probably 20 or even 30 feet, and then you have horizontal areas to walk through. So this is one of the last staircases going back up again. If you are in Turkey, I would definitely recommend visiting Gyges. Very mysterious. The entire Cappadocia area is just full of ancient, mysterious locations. Almost all of them cut into the bedrock. And finally, this is the last level. You can see some mortar, stone put together. And this is coming up through the exit. Hi, this is Brian Forrester. Today we're exploring Hattusha in Turkey. The most famous aspect of this ancient Hittite site are these two lion figures. But we're going to see evidence of two different levels of construction. One rough, as you can see on the right there, and this, which is megalithic. Tight-fitting stones, or at least they once were. This wall section was obviously victim to a massive earthquake, which pulled it apart. You can see other parts are tight-fitting, relatively. Originally, there would have been no mortar whatsoever. Here you can see that it's tight-fitting in this area. There you see where it's been pulled apart by an ancient and massive cataclysm, likely an earthquake. Now on the right side was tight-fitting work, and there in the background very rough. So clearly two different stages of construction by two different cultures. Here again we go from rough on the right to megalithic tight-fitting larger stones on the left. Also evidence of ancient drill holes. Not just these four, but we saw between 50 and 100 ancient core drills. By looking in detail, you see lots of weathering inside, so these are in no way modern. After that, it was up a relatively crude staircase made during the Hittite period, and into a massive tunnel. Now this tunnel is composed of large megalithic blocks, but they're not particularly tight-fitting, so it's very likely that this, again, is from the Hittite period, and not from the older, more high-tech megalithic period. You can see that the tunnel is quite long. What's going to be curious is what we see at the end. It's here, once again, a drill hole for a hinge. And on the other side, you can also see that the doors would open inward inside the tunnel. Once we go outside, once again, a crude retaining wall constructed during the Hittite period. This is quite like what we see in Peru, Bolivia, and Egypt. We see the work of the cultures we know of, such as the dynastic Egyptians and the Inca, but then we also see much more high-tech work, such as here, large arches instead of two arches.
Alright, 5 more minutes and then I'm gonna sign off. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Which is heavily weathered. It could have been done by ancient machines. And here on the other side as well. Look at the rougher work on the left-hand side. Then the next set of arches, once again we see a crease in the stone, which looks like it could have been done by some kind of machine.
3D's almost better than Duke Nukem 3D.
More of the core drill holes. Then see that crease in the arch
Yeah, this 3D's like really good.
on the left-hand side. Now we're walking towards a large wall, and again we're going to see two different styles of construction. You see the monoliths, which look like they have cataclysmic damage of some kind on top, and then the later, cruder filling-in work done by the Hittites. Here, further along, massive blocks of stone, once again, with almost perfect core drill holes in the
Thanks for
middle.
being here, Moonraker, late into the night,
The holes were meant
into the early morning.
to hold these large stones together. We saw about 8. Now we're going to get back to that green stone.
I don't think we're gonna get in the next 4 minutes. I'm gonna try my best, but man,
But again, a very large megalithic
I don't know.
block with almost perfectly circular drill holes. The angle of the camera was bad in that instance. But
I'm
here
not the one to know that.
core drill hole, you can see with the drill markings. Now as we walk towards a relatively crude wall, we're going to focus on the stone there in the center. Here you can see 4. There are 3 at the moment. We're going to see 4 more core drill holes. Here is the large nephrite jade block. Some believe was brought from Egypt, though we weren't able to positively identify Egypt as the source. Quite well polished. There are 2 of them located in Aztec.
Cool, bro. That's nice.
Here, this is what
Thanks,
we
man.
believe is the epicenter area of Katusha. See, again, megalithic blocks. Almost all of the stone we've seen so far is limestone, but the inner core part is actually granite.
Oh wow, insane.
Granite supposedly from at least 150 kilometers away. This is still the limestone. See how eroded the surfaces are.
I sound upset.
This one used to fit together quite tightly, and lots more of the ancient core drill holes with a lot of erosion even in the inside. So this gives us indication A, of lost ancient high technology, and B, extreme weathering over the course of a very extensive period of time.
Fuck off. Alright, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes.
There's a wall of ancient tight-fitting blocks.
And then I'll probably,
Once
I don't know, I'll probably stream something outside, probably.
Now we're entering. We see more of the core drill holes. As I said, we saw between 50 and 100 of them, and we didn't actually cover the entire site. It's quite massive. But now we're going to start moving into the granite area. More core drills. See these stones at one time likely fit together without any mortar or cement or filler of any kind. Now we are approaching the granite area. Once again, in the limestone, more of the core drill holes.
Like, I fucking hate this game.
This technology was not developed, as far as we know, until about.
Please, when you think you're special, your stream actually has 9,000 mods.
so
You are special, my dude.
of lost ancient
You
technology.
are special.
And now saw marks. Circular saw mark there. And there.
You are special.
That is the granite. Dark colored stone. Looks very similar to the limestone, but it is in fact granite brought from Ephesus, which, as I said, is a very
No, man, there's no fucking hierarchy bullshit here, bro. Dude,
and a
there's no
spring
fucking
saw
hierarchy
mark.
bullshit here.
See here. So there's more to the history of Turkey than most people realize. Clear evidence of lost
In our own special way.
technology. There again is the straight or a straight saw mark.
I'm fucking special edit
This
this
is Brian
fucking
Morrison.
third camera.
Please pause the video if you wish to read this sign. This was previous to our trip to the now famous
Who's
Göbekli
memeing?
Tepe, the site
I hear you.
supposedly constructed by Antiochus in the 1st century BC. What's
Have you seen the George Carlin bit?
are
Where he's like 80
tunnels.
years old and he's like,
This rather
yeah,
short
and
tunnel
it means that you're special.
back,
And if everybody's special, then it doesn't mean a fucking thing at all.
done with hand tools.
When he says that every child is special, and he goes, every child is not special.
There is a sculpture in the location of Antiochus and Heracles.
Oh, you seen that one? Nice, yeah, man. That was like his, man. That was no holds barred. That's special.
Was done with hand tools, but it goes several hundred feet into the
Every
bedrock,
child
and
is
it
not
supposedly
special.
continues on for hundreds and hundreds of more. The steps going hundreds of feet down, and then almost a slide-like area at the bottom where it just keeps going and going. There's Chester from our tour in September.
Calling
And
it
then
is,
after
yeah.
that, we decided to go see Mount
Oh my
Nemrut.
god.
And Mount Nemrut again supposedly was a construction done.
That one was
by
especially
Antiochus
outrageous. I mean, he's really outrageous, but man,
BC,
that one was just wild.
and that is called, I think it's called a tumulus.
Alright.
So
I'm gonna
it's
sign
made
off
of
maybe after like
comparisons
one or
of
two more
Eastern
runs.
Paris
Thanks for being here, bros and girls
the
and everybody.
Western Paris.
Thank you so much, Russ, for the freaking sub, dude. That's really
The
cool of you,
landscape
man.
of Turkey in
And
the
people watching the
background.
ads and being here, being my friends. Lurkers being
Climbing up
you.
hundreds and hundreds of stairs to get to the actual location, which has a number of sculptures.
My pleasure. Yo, thanks, bro.
So this is more or less the final leg of that journey on the way up.
This is gonna happen, but this 23, hopefully, sometime. But it's gonna take some
Here we
time,
have
I
a
think.
pyramidal structure
I
of
don't
some
know.
kind made of large blocks, but not of a megalithic nature necessarily.
This time, the pleasure
But
will be
then
all
we have
mine.
the
Yeah.
impressive location at the top of Mount Nemrut, where there are a number of sculptures. You can see the heads have fallen down or were knocked down. Why they haven't been
This
put
is
up
quotes.
back in place, I don't understand, because they're actually all not really that huge. end, I'm not sure who were the people who did the desecration of the site.
Guys, this
But,
third camera
well,
is my
unfortunately, the sculptures were
arch
not as
nemesis.
as I had hoped, though it's still a rather impressive site. But the main focus of these early days in Turkey in September 2019 was to go to the famous Göbekli Tepe, which has only been excavated, I think, for 20 years or less. So the road there, you can see we're going through agricultural areas, relatively flat. Then they just finished building an on-site museum as well as, of course, as a gift shop.
Always did enjoy a good squeeze. That was the saddest part of the movie.
As well as a small museum slash visitor center here, which has a display of some of the artifacts. This is the actual location in Turkey where Göbekli Tepe is. And the interesting thing about it, probably the most
The rocks
interesting
look-
thing is it's been dated to be as old as around 11,500 years old. That would be just after the series
Don't need
of
the gun,
great
Commander.
cataclysms that hit the Earth.
Mmm.
So, the oldest carbon dating.
Is that really in the
which has only
movie?
been a
That is
little
not a
bit
line in the
done on
movie.
the site, again, is
That's hilarious.
11,500 years old. So obviously a lot more of radiocarbon testing should be done in order to make that number solid.
When they're in the
So only
sauna or
about
whatever?
1/30
Yeah.
of Göbekli
In the
Tepe
spa,
has been
insane.
excavated. We've
Such a
heard
good
that there
movie,
are
man. Such a good movie.
some more excavations going on, but not the amount that some would like.
It's one of my favorite GoldenEye, or one of my favorite Bonds.
Tent-like
for
structure
sure.
over top of Göbekli Tepe in order to protect these
Russ doesn't get
large
them wrong. Yeah,
limestone
true.
T-shaped blocks. Some of them are up to 20 feet tall or 6 meters and weigh approximately 10 tons. So this is a megalithic site, but there's no sign of lost
Guys,
ancient
like, I
high
suck.
technology.
I really fucking
This
suck.
is limestone, which is quite soft, and we can clearly see the hand tool marks. So what's most profound about Göbekli Tepe, if proven,
If you're not a Bond fan of the movie, yeah,
is its
true.
amazing age. It's about twice as old as
A
any
lot of
the
death,
other
though. A lot of Russians pass
ancient
away.
sites or civilizations that we know of, so that would make it
Pretty
about
violent movie.
5,000 to 6,000 years older than what is presumed to be the first civilization. Now, nearby, in a nearby town, I believe it's called Urfa, is an excellent museum.
As opposed to like fucking
Again, please pause on the video if you
Roger
want to
Moore,
see
Sean Connery,
this sign.
karate chopping guards, stealth-wise, you know. Not that they were
And
always
shows
like that,
this,
but
which is presumed to be the oldest sculpture, full-size sculpture ever found. As well in this location, we have a
all right, one or
Neolithic
two more
section.
runs. This for real this time.
And you can see that the carving and the sculptures are actually relatively crude. So again, though Göbekli Tepe is a megalithic, quote-unquote megalithic site, it's not a site where we find examples of lost ancient high technology, as we do in Peru and Bolivia, and also in Egypt and other locations. But Turkey does have a great megalithic high-tech, ancient high-tech site called Hattusha, which I will get to in an upcoming video. And of course, the standard way that it shows that the stones were moved. I had heard from our guide that the quarry for the limestone is possibly 30 kilometers away, so that's impressive. It would have obviously taken more than 2 men
True,
to
good
pull a
point.
stone of this size, let alone the ones
Multi-person,
that
yeah.
are 10
Even the
tons or
archives,
even
man.
more.
He's
And
just
also here's the
AK-47ing all these
mock-up
friggin'
inside
Russians.
the museum of exact
Archives, he
replicas
must have
of
passed away
Göbekli
friggin' like
Tepe
50
itself.
Russian
This
guards or
gives
some
you
shit.
a great sense of
Okay, not
scale,
50, but maybe 20 or
because
something.
you're not allowed inside the gold
It's just so
Göbekli
crazy.
enclosure. So I was very happy to visit Göbekli Tepe. I was impressed by what ancient people did. Whether I will actually ever return again to Turkey, I'm not quite sure.
No, this level's no, like it's.
September of 2019,
You can't just no.
which is
Okay, this is probably the last run. This one right here.
the month as of the upload of the video, and I'm more concerned in
Yeah, it's
sites
the last
with
one.
no obvious lost ancient high technology. This
Can we get a
site
23 fail,
in
please?
no way displays.
Like what? Oh, that's it. The run. I just have an ad. Oh no, sorry, buddy. It was not the run. It was not the run. Thanks for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks for the cross check. That's really cool of you, bro. Alright, we're gonna rate Scotty. We be rating Scotty. Thanks for being here. Victoria Capital Province Clinton, correct? What? Victoria? It is. It is, man. Alright, thank you. Thanks for being here. I'll see you soon.